Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is not going to be very long because I know you've got a reception after, but we do need to talk to Isheeta about this play. A lot of references were made to the original Shakuntala, the Mahabharata, and then Kalidas writing it in the 4th century. And in that one, the ring brought back his memory. In this one, he gave her a watch, but it gave a little bit, but not much. So tell me, Isheeta, why Shakuntala? I mean, why did you talk about this? And I noticed that you brought it into our world, but then you made her a feminist. You've given, instead of this beautiful maiden who really is just the beautiful maiden, she's an Apsara's daughter, she's a doctor. And this, in India, and he's a Harvard professor. But, you know, the man is, whether he remembers or not, he's fairly self-centered. He knows what he wants. And she is a feminist and not taking any of this memory loss bullshit. So
this is why I was completely looking forward to the talk back with Aroon.
Okay,
I've only known her for a quarter of a century, for 25 years, so it couldn't be, you know, realizing that we're in between, the conversation is between you and the reception. I couldn't have had a better person with me, so can we have a huge hand for Aroon Shivdasani?
You do have to answer the question, though.
So why Shakuntala? So Aroon, to begin with, as I think I put in my director's note, this story is personal to me, not by way of the narrative in the play, which is obviously completely fictionalized based on 2 stories of 2 close friends of mine, which I will talk about, but my grandmother used to narrate the story of Shakuntala to me during trips from the US to Kolkata.
Okay.
And I was obsessed with the fairy tale. So she would tell me that Shakuntala was dressed in these jewels and she was carried away to the forest hermitage, and then she met her handsome prince, Dushant, and I found it to be the most romantic tale ever. And I had you know, I was fascinated by, obviously, her beauty and this notion of this very, this is the Kalidasa version, my grandmother would tell me. This demure woman who is going to the forest, falls in love, and then I think my grandmother skipped the pregnancy bit. I don't remember that from my childhood, but I do remember the ring and the notion that if Shakuntala could not take back the ring to Dushant, he would not remember her, and he would deny her and Bharat, their son.
That was the curse.
That was the curse, exactly. Yeah. So I think that the grandmother's tale was a big part of my childhood, and then later when I sort of rediscovered the text, what's fascinating is that here you have this woman, Shakuntala, over a continuum of history, and there are variants of treatment towards her. The Mahabharata version is 400 BC. In that version, she happens to be the very progressive, feministic, bold woman who, when she goes to Dushant at the palace with her son Bharata, and Dushant says, "I can't recall who you are," she pushes back all the way in 400 BC and says, "What do you mean you don't recall who I am? You know, we obviously know each other biblically very well, and here's your son." And Dushant denies knowing them, and then eventually there's a celestial nymph that comes forward and convinces Dushant that this is his wife and his child, and he should do the right thing. And then you see them obviously live happily ever after. But what struck me in the Mahabharata version was this feministic, bold Shakuntala who had agency and who could stand up to Dushant and was not afraid and coy and demure. Whereas in 400 AD, 800 years later,
Kalidas.
in the Kalidasa version, it's a much more regressive tale of a woman who's demure, and while it's a much more lyrically written work, the Kalidasa version, it's a far less feministic lens by way of the fact that, Durvasa places this curse on her, and unless she can produce this signet ring, which is the token of their love, he's going to deny Dushant ever recognizing her again. And then she goes to Dushant, lo and behold, and of course he has convenient memory loss and simply can't remember who she is. She's pregnant in the Kalidasa version. And then she's sort of completely, lo and behold, very distraught and upset. And then Kanva, her adopted father, comes forth and sort of consoles her and says, we'll find the ring. And then eventually it's discovered in a fish's belly, and they discover the ring, and then she takes the ring back, and then Dushant eventually recognizes her. So my Shakuntala Awaits, this play that you all just saw, is a combination of the Kalidasa and the Mahabharata version. In the Mahabharata version, she has agency, she's bold, she's feministic. And in the Kalidasa version, there is this notion of the lost ring, and therefore the watch, which we used as a device.
So now, in the today version,
yes,
which is you've used the bones of both those,
yes,
but you've got your own here.
Yes.
So you said that was two friends. So now tell us about that.
So I have two family friends, one in India and one in the US, who, let me backtrack 1 second. I think so going back to Aroon's question of why Shakuntala, obviously the grandmother's tale. The other notion is of motherhood. Motherhood has been a deeply personal, joyous experience in my life, and I'm sure in many people's lives. And I have two friends, one in the US and one in India, who chose to become mothers out of wedlock. And the irony is that one in 2020 and one in 2022, the irony is that here we are, 2 millennia later, and it is still not that easy for a woman who's economically, socially, professionally empowered to become a single mother.
Even though Shakuntala and Dushyant had the garland wedding,
Gandharva.
that was the Gandharva, which was allowed, which was legal, so to speak, in those days.
Yes.
And they consummated their marriage. They didn't just have this one-night stand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But I think the vulnerability with which she goes to the palace, sort of like, hi, here I am, and we've had this tryst. And he's like, oh, I just can't recall. Ramila Thappar has done this amazing analysis of the feministic implications of his was it convenient memory loss? Did he really not remember, or was he choosing not to remember? And obviously, it's a combination of the two. In the Mahabharata version, he chooses not to remember. And then in Kalidasa, he genuinely can't remember because of the curse. Till the curse is reversed. Yeah. So these two friends of mine and their own personal journeys made me think a lot about the transfer of power in the relationship between Shakuntala and Dushyant. And if I were to look at it in 2025, what I really see in this story is a transfer of power between Shakuntala and Dushyant. If we are to say that Dushyant, being the king, was the one who was initially more empowered when meeting this fair maiden in the forest hermitage, eventually through the hero's journey in Joseph Campbell Speaks, she completes the journey in such a way that she takes back her power. And if we were to look at just where we're at in 2025, where are we predicted to be in the next 25 years? If we look at the wealth transfer to women, out of, I think the numbers are $172 trillion, 70% of that is going to go to women by way of inheritance, by way of losing spouses, whatever. Will that create a shift in the social dynamics of how women navigate career, how they navigate relationships? It remains to be seen. But the reality is, while we've progressed from 2 millennia ago to today in terms of women, agency, and the stigmatization around being single and pregnant, there's still so much left to be desired in terms of society openly embracing single mothers in that sense.
Now, I presume that you left the ending as it is because you wanted people to decide. Is she going to come back?
Yeah.
Is she going to believe him because she's a doc? And she said, I want to see all your papers.
Yes.
She didn't believe him up front. She said, listen, this is all rubbish. Show it to me. So, is she going to check the papers and say, well, really, he has a lesion on his brain?
Yes.
Or is she going to say, well, I'm finished with this now. I'm not taking it anymore. So that was a good thing. And then, of course, this business of 10 years, and then he's having this one-night stand, and he has, it's a little iffy, the whole thing.
How's that for feedback? Talk about workshopping the play and getting feedback. So a couple of things, I'm just going to respond to that. One is that what I loved about Arjun Gupta, who played Dushant, can we have a hand for him? What I loved about Arjun's portrayal is I found it to be a very sensitive portrayal.
It was.
Right?
It was.
Of a guy who's genuinely a good guy, who's with Karuna for 10 years, unfortunately, leaves the boundaries of the relationship, goes out of town, meets Shakuntala, genuinely falls in love with her, which that's a moral debate of what he should and shouldn't have been doing.
Yes.
And then when he comes back, he's struck with this very rare memory disorder, prosopagnosia, where you can't remember faces from the last year and a half, 2 years. And to Rachel's point, which I really loved, that's what stuck for her in the play, is memory is a funny thing. What do we remember and what do we don't? And what sticks and what doesn't stick? So Dushant in Arjun's portrayal is vulnerable. He's human. And he does care for Karuna, yet he's drawn to Shakuntala even in the midst of this memory loss. And when Karuna finally leaves him, there is a sense of liberation, because he realizes that the relationship was over, probably a long time ago. And while he can't recall Shakuntala, there is something that he's deeply drawn to in terms of the connection that they share. In terms of what is the ending, I have, in the play, it sort of leaves it where they part, and you don't know if there's going to be a dialogue after. There is a screenplay version I'm developing, which is a little bit of a Bollywood version, where eventually, she goes back and then they reconnect over a FaceTime call once his memory starts to rejog itself. And she goes back to her mother, her judgmental mother, who throws her a baby shower, and is able to accept that the fact that her daughter is pregnant out of wedlock, and the family starts to accept it, and so forth. So it's meant to be open-ended, the ending.
Okay. Now tell us about Damaru. What is it? Why do you keep singing it in the middle? And we need to know. I mean, I didn't know what's this going on now, every now and again. I mean, you sing beautifully, we know that. But what was it all about?
So this is coming from the woman who put me on the New York City stage 25 years ago, literally. So what is Damaru? What is Damaru in the context of the play, or what is Damaru the song?
Both.
Okay. Damaru in the context of the play is punctuation, obviously, between the characters of Bajire baje Damaru drima drima, hridaya dharake drimata drima drima. The Damaru plays to the beat of my heart, which is that of the universe. I feel your rhythm, I feel your rhythm. So the two of them, throughout the course of the play, finding that while they are separated by worlds, maybe, there is a connect of the Damaru and the universal beat that kind of holds them together. This is also, I guess the second part of the question is, what is the album,
yes.
right? So the album, truthfully, is inspired by... I was a traditional Rabindra Sangeet singer. That's how Aroon first knew me. I started training in Tagore's music when I was 14. Went to Kolkata from the US to do a Guru Shiksha Parampara. This teenager from New Jersey who could really, I spoke very accented Bengali, and was, lo and behold, kind of auditioned and taken by this enormous maestro who was the greatest in her field, Suchitra Mitra, and quite a feminist herself. This is she was in 1970s Kolkata, left her husband, living life on her own terms, very bold, very, very much a woman who had agency in every sense of the word. And she was she taught me Rabindra Sangeet. And that's how I met Aroon and many other people in New York and started singing. And then it was around the time of 9/11 that Aroon said to me, why don't you compose something which weaves together the Indian and the American national anthems? And I think that was the beginning of my fusion journey, as kind of trite as it may sound to put together national anthems as a first step in the fusion journey, but it was. And we performed that for
many, many events. In fact, you sang for me. That's how I first met you, as you just said, through Rabindra Sangeet. And I thought, that's who she is. She's a singer for Rabindra Sangeet. And you did such a gorgeous job that you sang for practically every one of my events initially. And every time we had to do both national anthems, you had that medley for it. Now, I always pegged you as a singer. All of a sudden, a few years ago, you became a playwright. How come?
How come?
And why? And why?
She's a tough crowd.
Oh, all your three...
I think I need a drink before you guys get a reception drink.
And all three of your plays, you've written three,
yes,
have been based on myth, on stories from way back.
Yeah.
Mahabharata, Kalidas, Ramayana, Tagore. So why? They obviously strike a note with you somewhere. Mm-hmm. So why? And can you tell us a little bit about each?
I will answer that, but there's one other thing that I want to say in connection with Aroon being instrumental to my fusion music career. It's not just Aroon, it's Rachel Cooper, Purnendu Chatterjee, there were Jonathan Hollander, 5 people who really mentored me. And the reason I want to bring up this point of mentorship in the arts, because it's very important for all artists who are in development. And as an artist, you're always in development. I was a full-time management consultant, and I would have crazy hours, and Aroon would have me sing at the Lincoln Center to open the film festival, and I would literally carry an extra set of clothes, go change in the bathroom, put on my makeup, and show up at the Lincoln Center and sing for hundreds of people. And the reason I bring this up is that it is so important to have mentors in general. In my management consulting life, I've also had terrific mentors. In my arts life, I've also been very blessed to have mentors like Aroon, Rachel, PC, Jonathan Hollander, because there's something that they can see that you cannot see. And the value of that in terms of taking a leap to experiment, to create music, to create theater, all of that really originated with these 4 or 5 people. So I have to express my enormous gratitude for that. So to answer your question, how did I become a playwright? Similarly, juggling a career in management consulting in Mumbai, I sang for the Kalagoda Festival, and I did a performance with my band. And then that festival director, Brinda Miller, said to me, okay, now you've done a great job with your band for like 2,000 people. She said, next year, do something on Tagore's women, something on Tagore's women. And I'd had a conversation with Satyajit Ray when I was in college at Brown.
Okay.
And I had asked him what were the feministic implications of his story in Charulata and in Khore Baire. Because both of these women are inspired by these very charismatic men, and then they fall apart the minute that these men leave. So I was like, what are you suggesting about feminism and women gaining agency or strength? And he said to me in a very diplomatic tone, he said, mine are but mere adaptations of Tagore's work. So he didn't have an answer for that. So that developed Three Women, which has been my first play that has been running now for 12 years still. And it's the story of Charu and Kadambari Devi, Tagore's sister-in-law who committed suicide out of their love affair, who I've brought into the modern day as a time-traveling Sex and the City ghost who guides Charu and Bimala to better life outcomes than herself. So that play is actually in development for a couple of different things. One is that it's being adapted into a graphic novel by Penguin Random House.
Are you writing the novel?
It's based on the play, so it's written already.
So, yeah.
And it's also in development to become a film. I've tied up with an American production house, Traveling Bone Entertainment. Steve Garrow is here somewhere in the audience.
And you're doing the screenplay for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I've written the screenplay. Thank you.
So now, in all these, in the film, in your plays, obviously, in everything, so now you're not just a playwright. You're a playwright, a filmmaker, a novelist, a singer. So now, are you going to... So you're going to marry them. All your plays, you're going to be singing. Yes.
I do sing in all of my plays. This is my most nascent play. The other ones are full-blown productions. Preetham Chakrabarti has done the music for Sundays with Chitra and Chaitali. And then we've had, for Three Women, we've had a very talented musician, Ronit Chatterjee, who's done the soundscape for that.
Okay. When we spoke a little earlier, you told me about a not-for-profit.
Yes.
That you were very involved in.
Yes.
And I think, I can't see Rachel. Hi, Rachel. You were going to show the 1 minute film and then talk about it.
I'm just going to say one quick thing.
Yeah, go.
So this is a sort of an issue and a cause that's very close to my heart. And I wanted to tie it into Shakuntala Awaits, which is a story about a young woman who's pregnant, ultimately. And I've recently joined the board of Antara International, which is an organization founded by Ashok Alexander, who's former McKinsey and the former Gates Foundation head in India, who's head the Avahan project for Bill Gates, which is an HIV/AIDS prevention project, and then started his own foundation, the Antara Foundation. And it's been an incredible honor to be on their board. And we're graced this evening to have their CEO, Shannon Paz, with us, who's present. And Antara's work is about reducing high-risk mortality for pregnant mothers and newborns in Madhya Pradesh. There are 80 mothers and children who die every day in India from high-risk births. And hence turning it over to Rachel to watch a little bit of a clip.
Well, let's see the clip, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A for about 10 minutes, and then we'll join together in the reception.
Every hour, 90 women and children in India die due to preventable causes related to childbirth. We at the Antara Foundation work to eliminate maternal and child deaths, focusing on the first 1,000 days of life, from conception to when the child is 2 years of age. We work with some of the most remote and marginalized communities in India, partnering with the government for scale.
Our work takes two routes. We strengthen last mile public health delivery by supporting community health workers to become more effective at identifying risk, by using data to track and manage women and children at high risk, and by strengthening public health facilities.
Our second route takes us directly to the community, where we work on the belief that women who are placed closest to their problems are better equipped to be solving for it.
We convene open groups for women and mothers and provide them a platform to elevate their voices, build agency, and demand a better healthcare.
Our unique proposition comes from ensuring that demand and supply work together. This happens by making sure that community members are working with partnership with healthcare providers to reach each and every mother and child.
We are a team of 160, working with women, for women. The Antara Foundation brings together skilled, young, dynamic, and motivated individuals from all across India, bound together by a common aspiration and a common belief that every mother and every child deserves an equal start to a healthy life.
That was Chandrika Bahadur, the India CEO, and I want to just thank Rachel Cooper for her shared vision of using the arts as a means to create awareness in public health, education, using culture as diplomacy. I'm very grateful to Rachel for sharing this value and for having this vision. Thank you.
First, I want to thank both of you. Aroon, your question was interesting because at heart, where I see them all coming together is as storytellers. And we're all trying to tell the story of what it means to be human, to come together, within all the different kinds of divisiveness that exists today. And I'm going to kick off this Q&A with a question that I have, and maybe it's being not Indian. So realizing that there's also the memory of a homeland, the idea that your characters are going to India, and that the forgetting and the memory, there's something there that is not only the personal, for my experience, that it was not only the personal relationship, the romance, the guy's a jerk or he's not a jerk, but there was something bigger to me about the fact that both of them have decided to go to India, that there's some tie there, that in fact I would love to see that explored a little more deeply, because that's a part of a larger understanding of memory. I wondered if you could speak to that.
It's interesting. So to Rachel's question, ultimately, it's a diaspora narrative. It's about two Indian Americans maybe growing up in slightly different worlds. And the connect to India is very deep. For Shakuntala, it's growing up in Queens, in Jamaica, seeing her parents' dhaba, the realities of that day in and day out. And for Dushyant, it's a more distant memory of seeing his parents probably traveling back and forth. But the desire to go back to your origin is very human and very instinctive. The desire to go back to where you come from is intergenerational and cross-generational. I just want to add one point to that. I was on a panel in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago for Indiaspora, and there was a 7th grade girl who wrote about something, a rabies epidemic in India and why she cares about it. And she's never been to India. And I asked her, I said, why do you care about India? And she said to me, because I am Indian, I look Indian, even if I was born and raised here. And I think the navigation between worlds, crossing worlds, memory, what do we recall, what do we not recall? How is memory selective when we grow up in a diasporic context is a very deep part of what inspired me to write this narrative.
And Aroon, I've got to put you on the spot. You created IAAC. IAAC at heart is about a kind of memory and diaspora.
Absolutely.
So that storytelling that lives on, that is so powerful, if you could just say a little bit about that, reflect on that for us.
Well, I think when I started it, there was, to my mind, to my eyes, to what was around me, I didn't see any representation of the arts of India, of the life in India, of anything representing India. Though New York is a place for the arts, for everything. You name it, you can find it. But India, people knew Satyajit Ray and Ravi Shankar, if they knew anyone at all. And so I decided to do something about it. And I think all the people who I got involved, whether it was in film, in dance, in music, in the visual arts, in theater, I was very lucky to be able to connect with people here, Americans who I could work with, who would allow our artists, I call them my artists, to work with them, to be showcased, to give them a platform to tell their stories, to be visible, because up to now, it's not that we didn't have artists. We had them in every field, but they were invisible. You didn't see them on the stage, on the screen, on anything. So my heart needed to see them. My brain needed to see them. That's why I formed the IAAC.
So visibility is a very powerful thing.
Very important.
Both of you have really been championing that. Now I'd like to open it up to you. What is that question that is just pressing that you've been wanting to ask since the play ended? And we have microphones on either side, or a commentary, since obviously that this is being developed and your comments are respected and hoped for. So I see a question here.
First of all, it was a beautiful play. I enjoyed it very much. I was not born and raised here, but I was born and raised in Lahore. And I have never read the story before or heard it. It was a beautiful experience. I feel like I learned something new. I have a comment. When the characters separated, I realized there's only a little bit a pocket of time where you can find love. And that's very short, and it can disappear any moment. And I felt that in the show, in the play. And that was done beautifully. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
That is so
Thank you.
beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Another question or comment?
Hi, I loved it. I hadn't seen it before, and I thought the subject matter was amazing and progressive, and the feminism in it was wonderful. But at some point, I was surprised when Deshant said he can't have kids. And I was wondering if you did that maybe to make Karuna look like a liar or something, so it wouldn't be as terrible if he cheated on her, because I'm wondering why he thought he couldn't have kids, and he obviously could.
So I think the device there is that there's something amiss in the relationship with Karuna that he could never put his finger on, whether that was a biological issue on, either side, which obviously ultimately it wasn't because he could conceive. But the larger point there being that there was a dysfunction in his relationship with Karuna, which he was not willing to look at or to accept because of the comfort and the familiarity that they shared for many years.
I'd like to jump in there. I think what I got out of that was he said that it's been such a long relationship that they're more like friends, and towards the end when he was sick, she became almost like a mother. So that relationship doesn't work with conceiving.
What are you really saying there, Aroon?
I couldn't have said it any better.